Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. In this class of our learning, we should have the basic English immediately. And today we're going to start on 99b. We start from Pshita. It must be about 10 lines from the top. Okay. Pshita. Okay, but this is the way the Gemara introduces a question. It starts up with the following is obvious, but what we don't know is the next thing after this. So it starts up with Pshita. This case would be obvious if Amar le'echad v'lei l'shnayim. If someone was selling a field, and he tells his shliach, his proxy, to sell the field to one person. He tells him clearly, I want the entire field sold to one person, not to two people. I don't want to hold on to two documents of sale. I want to who would be holding the document and purchase it. Why he cares? Maybe before we were dealing with holding on to documents, when he was telling him to sell for me, apparently there is a document of sale. I would think it would only go to the purchaser and that he would hold on to that. Okay, whatever the case is, he was instructed to one person and not to two people. So what would the rule be if he sold it to two people? He told him one and not two. So the sale is not valid. He's only a messenger if he follows the instructions. Otherwise, he's not a messenger. However, this is where the question comes in. But let's say he says, sell it to one person, but he doesn't say, and not to two. Yeah, this is very important in giving instructions in the classroom. Yeah, you have to say, and not. Otherwise, they don't get what you said. Right. One and not two. Okay, but let's say he says one stama, just plain without saying and not two. Well, Ravuna Amar le'echad v'lei l'shnayim. Ravuna says, well, that was understood. He said to one and not to two. Well, Rav Chisda, Rabbi Bar Ravuna, Darmi Tarbayo, they both say le'echad v'afilu l'shnayim v'afilu l'meya. They say no. One means one. It could be two. It could mean 100. He didn't say and not two. Well, Ikla Rav Nachman l'Surah. Rav Nachman came to Surah, where I guess they lived, Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Rabbi Bar Ravuna. Rav was in Surah. So Rav's a student. Rav Chisda is, I guess, a student of Rav, or a generation down. And Allah Gabe Rav Chisda Rabbi Bar Ravuna. Rav Chisda and Rabbi Bar Ravuna come to see Rav Nachman. Now they were the ones that said that if he says sell it to one, that doesn't just mean one, that could mean 100. They said to him, what would be the halacha in such a situation? Would that be considered a sale if they sold it to two or more people? They say, you're right. He agrees with them. So now they follow up and they say, even if the shliach made a mistake. Now, what do we mean over here by made a mistake? We mean that he sold too low. He sold. He underpriced it, and so Amalahu. So Rav Nachman says in the Tashlech, I wasn't talking about that case. If he sold it too cheap, so then the sale's off. He was a messenger to sell it for the right price, not for the wrong price. Amrulay. So they said to Rav Nachman, Amar Mar, but the master taught, doesn't have to be the master meaning Rav Nachman, it could have been a brisa. For Mar, we have a brisa, or a Mishnah maybe, that says there's no such thing as overcharging or underpaying for property. When it comes to items, they have a specific price. When it comes to property, usually if there's usually there's a market price, but there's a special rule when it comes to property, to real estate, that if the person overpays for real estate and he didn't realize that he was overpaying, so we don't say that it's a mekach tois, that it's right. We don't say that because of the quality of real estate. Then, so if he underpays, the same thing as well. So here he stole the field for too little. So why are you telling me the sale is off? We have a rule: no matter what price property is sold for, it's always the sale is valid. Umar says, Rav Nachman responds to them that that's if the owner of the property would have made the sale. But if the messenger makes the sale, I sent you to fix my situation, not to ruin it. The messenger didn't verify with the seller about price. Sell property. Well, he sure knew how to make a sale. Right. Right. But for the wrong price. I mean, I'm sorry. Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, this has nothing to do with one or two people, though. Right? It's completely different.
Right. That's how we started off. One or two people. We're talking about the shliach not following through, and then we said, well, let's say he doesn't follow through with the price. So Rav Nachman says that's a different story. So they challenged him. They said, but why should that be a problem? There's no way no by Karkois. They said that's because he's a shliach. So now we do have an example where a shliach. We have one example where if the shliach changes it, it's not a problem. That's if he sells it to more than one person. Other example where the shliach changes it is a problem if the price is not right. When we not tamer the shani ben shliach lebalabais, where do you know that we can differentiate between an action that was done by the shliach or the action that was done by the homeowner? So it says the Tanan. We're going to quote about truma. We have a mishnah. If someone tells his messenger, the rule with truma is like this: that a person has to separate some of his grain, or wine or oil, and give it to the kohen. How much does he have to give? So according to the Torah, the smallest amount is already satisfactory. But the rabbis put in three possible prices. There's either 2%, truma, trei, mimeya, that's the average, 2 out of 100, or which is one out of 50, or it's 1 out of 40 if he's very generous, or it's 1 out of 60 if he is stingy. He gets to decide if he wants to be generous or stingy. As he's separating, he says, "I'm a stingy guy," and whatever. So what happens here is the truma has to be taken by the person himself, and the rule is that he can make a shliach, but it can't just be like just someone randomly taking truma and said, "Oh, it's been taken already." It doesn't work like that. It has to be done by the owner, and if the owner doesn't do it, you need a real shliach to do it. Well, someone tells a shliach, "Say you're trying. Go and take truma." So what's the rule? Tarim kadas balabais. He has to know what his what the homeowner would have wanted to give, how generous he is. Many day if he doesn't know how generous the homeowner is. So Tarim bebenis, and he just does the average, which is echad mechamishim, which is 1 out of 50, which is 2%. Pichas asara, heisav asara. If he did 1 out of 40 or 1 out of 60, well, trumasi truma, that still works. Tanya, but when it comes to a balabayas, the homeowner himself, if when he's taking truma, he took out and it came up in his hand, even 1 out of 20. So that's much larger. That's the ratio is much less over there. Much larger amount. It's still considered truma. See the difference between the balabayas and the shliach? Balabayas takes 1 out of 20, and the shliach can only do 1 out of 40, 50, or 60. Otherwise, it's not valid. Otherwise, it is valid. Truma, yeah. What we're saying is that the balabais can do things, and but if the shliach does it, it's messed up.
Even if the balabais wants to take one.
No, then you would have to specify that. But if you didn't specify that, then it wouldn't be valid.
It's true. Or can it be like mentioned?
I don't remember. I think Truma was supposed to be done by estimation, as opposed to Meiser. Meiser had to be taken by calculation, and Truma was taken by estimation.
No, because I'm thinking back when we learned about
You're asking on the question. Allah biyadai. Same in it.
That's why they gave the leeway of 10%.
It doesn't mean his hand. It could mean with the vessel because he was using grain, But okay, Tashima, come and listen. Haisik Subasa Arba Mesos. Let's say Balabais is the homeowner. What's the bias is a house and Baal means owner. Yeah, it's a balabas is a homeowner, but that's like it's the Hebrew Yiddishized. Okay. So let's say the Kesubos is 400 says. Well, talking about the widow that's selling off the property of the orphans in order to get her ksuba. So she sells to this one, to that one. She's collecting a mana each because her ksuba was 100. And at the end, the last one she sold for a mana b'dinar. The mana shalachron. With the last mana. I'm sorry. Mana b'dinar b'mana. That's how you have to read it. Mana dinar for one mana. She sold too much at the end. Shalachron batal v'shalkula mechran kayim. The last part, the last sale is nullified, is void, and the other ones are valid. Now, what's our question here? We're seeing that she was able to sell to more than one person. Maybe that wasn't the original, maybe she was only supposed to sell to one. So Rav Shisha Breder Ravidi Bikatini. Rav Shisha Breder Ravidi says we're talking about that these were smaller fields and one person wouldn't have bought it anyway. These were all separate sales. It wasn't in one plot of land that was divided up. These were different fields that were sold up from different sides of their area.
This discussion about the role of very in a world where everyone's completely on. But seems that it gives the Torah. I mean, it's like, well, I really didn't need that. Oh, well, pretend to be. Says it's his fault because he chose the wrong thing. We're talking about this. You should have chosen that. You should have chosen somebody who didn't make that mistake.
Yeah, but we're not saying
something about
we're not putting fault on him. We're just saying if it's valid. We're not blaming him. And you should have chosen a better shliach.
Well, no. You know, that's a big power. Spoke earlier about your point. It's about hire someone to steal, and it's not the person hired him.
Right.
Here it's not doing anything. You can't just say, "I was just not."
There's no criminal activity.
No.
Right.
Here. But I was wondering. See what I'm saying? I don't even see what's bothering me.
He's saying that the person, usually when you use a proxy, you would like that the sale is a done deal, because the sender, the original owner of this, the Mishaleah, can always say, well, he didn't do it exactly the way I wanted it, so now the sale's off. It's sort of like he has this loophole to always get out of things.
Wait, did you ready? When all the children they send all over the world, once your children have, just like we have, the Philocopters, because Hashem put us in this world to do our job.
He's talking business. You're talking shlipas. Okay. Although
It's from the point of view of the purchaser. He was offered the property at 58. And then later, the owner says, "Oh, it was really worth 15 times. So he hurt me. So I'm going to undo this sale." That would only apply if it was a cattle. It's a picture on cattle. Not legal ceremonies. That goes into the.
okay, we have a new Mishnah. Shum Hadayanim. The evaluation that the judges did for the property. That turned out that it was evaluated 1/6 less than its real price. Oh, yeah, see for this, or it was evaluated 1/6 more. Now, the significance that we're saying it's 6 is because when it comes to a sale, the cutoff point of when a sale becomes invalid because of being overcharged or underpaying is 1/6. So if it's more than a 6, the sale is invalid. If it's less than a 6, the sale is valid. If it's exactly a 6, the sale is valid, but they have to return the overcharge. Okay, so what's going on here is that they're evaluating a property and it's getting messed up by 1/6. It's a michram batal. The sale's off. Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, sale's valid. Remember who did this? This was the judges that did this. This was done by the court. And his logic is, what power does the court have if not to make sure that the sale's valid? I mean, it's done by the court. What more do you want? If there was a public auction, Bekiris means to come and investigate. And Igeris means like an invitation, a letter. If whoever wants, which basically means a public auction. Whoever wants can come see what its value is. Beinayam, they agreed that this is how they would evaluate it. Even if the price was so off that it's double the price, or it was half the price, it's still a valid sale. Okay. Yeah. Now, what was going on with the Dayanim? Wouldn't the Dayanim do it with announcements? Something very strange in this Mishnah, because how were the Dayanim doing it without the announcement? We'll see in the Gemara. It's going to discuss it a little bit. Ibayilu. Now the Gemara has a question. Shliach Kaman. If the judges make a mistake, it was up to 1/6 that it would be valid or not. If the widow made a mistake when she's selling a property, so if the mistake was still included in what they owed her, so they would just say, okay, that's your loss. But once the mistake went above what was her loss, even 1 dinar, it's already the sale's invalid. Doesn't have to do with the 6. Now we ask, what about a shliach? So we have the two sides over here. We have the judges up to a 6. We have the widow, which is even 1 dinar more, even a small percent. And we shliach is somewhere in the middle. What is the rule with the shliach?
Why is it more strict?
She was selling their property for herself, and she messed it up. Right. Well, Rava Amar Rav Nachman Shliach Kedayanim. Rava says in the name of Rav Nachman that the shliach is like the judges. It means 1/6 the sale would be not valid if it's mis-evaluated by a 6. Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna, Rav Nachman Kalmana. Bar Bisna says the name of Rav Nachman that it's like a widow. That means even the smallest amount in the sales off. Rav Nachman Shliach Kedayanim. Rav says the name of Rav Nachman Shliach is like the judges. Ma Dayanim Lav Liditu. Just like the judges are not selling their own thing. Shliach Nami Lav Lididei. They're not selling it for themselves. The Shliach is also not selling it for himself. But the widow is selling it for herself, and that's why it's different. The widow is the different story. She cannot sell even one little deviation from the price, sales off. Shmuel Bar Bisna Rav Nachman Kalmana say no. The shliach is more similar to the almana. Here we're looking for what should we compare? What's more comparable? The shliach to the widow or the shliach to the judges? So we said, well, first the shliach to the judges because neither of them have an invested interest yet. And now the other side is no. The shliach is more similar to the widow. Mal mani yechida shliach yachid. It's just an individual. Lafuke bezdin the rabbin, but by the court, that's a bezdin. That's a public. So that's it's more people together. That should be that they wouldn't have made that mistake. It's considered more of not a negligence. Okay. The shliach kalmana, the rule is that a shliach is more similar to an almana, which means that he can't deviate even one drop. What's the difference from what we learned in the Mishnah? We just learned when it comes to Truma that he was supposed to take according to the intention of the Balabais. But what happens if he doesn't know the intention of the Balabais? And so then we said he should take the average, which is 2%. Let's say he went up to 1 out of 40 or 1 out of 60. We said that's also valid. Problem is he's a shliach, and if he made a mistake, it shouldn't work, right? According to the way we just said. Kumar says, "Hassam kivin the tayrim ba'ini arav, ikad the tayrim ba'ini yafe." There are people that take like that. Amalei lahachim alaticha. I thought that you were generous. You're always generous to me. I thought you're stingy. You're always stingy to me. Well, whatever he claims, he says that's what I evaluated you. But over here, it's not just that he didn't realize what type of character he had. It's a real mistake. Yeah. Over here, it's there is a market price for this property, and he didn't do it right. That's a real mistake. Yeah. And he tells him, I didn't want you, I didn't need you to make a mistake. You're not a messenger. Maybe what the Gemara means is that people have stingy times and generous times. Sometimes it's stingy, sometimes it's generous. And so he said, I didn't know what you were doing today. I didn't know what you said. Depending on how the bank account's doing, I'll be more generous. Amar Rav Huna Bar Chanina, Amar Rav Nachman Alachik Divrei Chachamim. Rav Huna Bar Chanina says the name of Rav Nachman Allah is like the Chachamim, which means that 1/6 the sales off. Not like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, Makayach Best in Yafa, that 1 second, this was sold by the court. It's a good sale, even if there was a mistake.
Is it 160 or 140?
Oh, 1 second. By Truma, you could give, the average was 1 out of 50. The stingy would give 1 out of 60. And the generous would give 1 out of 40. Now, when it comes to a sale, it's 1/6.
That's not
Just a regular sale, 1/6. I think the way they measure 6 is like this. Something costs $5. So if he sells it for $6, so then that would be 1/6 more, even though that's 1/5 more.
17%.
Even though it's 1/5, but that's the way they calculate it. Because at the end of the day, when you look at it afterwards, it becomes a 6. Okay, it's called milbar, right, from the outside. 6 milbar. Bar means outside. Got it? Okay. Rav Nachman Makayach Best in Yafa. 1 second. That means that Rav Nachman doesn't hold that. What is that expression that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel gave us? that isn't the power of the court strong? So the sale should be valid even if there was a sixth law. Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman says the name of Shmuel. Yisayim Shmuel Achlik B'nechsei Aviyam. Let's say orphans are coming to divide the estate from their father. Bezdin Ma'amidalim Apitropos. Bezdin designates a caretaker, a trustee, for each one of them. Ubaydalim Chelek Yafa, the children, so they can't decide what they want. They'll choose lollipops over a house. So they have to have a trustee that's going to make these decisions for them. So they choose. So, but Higdilu Yechelim Limchais. When they grow up, they can say, "Oh, that trustee got me the 59 Cadillac. I should have gotten the 58."
No, 50.
Okay. Big mistake. I just made a big mistake. Okay. Rav Nachman Didei Amar Higdilu Ein Yechelim Limchais. Rav Nachman says when they grow up, they cannot retract from the division, the way it was allocated, because Imkain Makayach Besdin Yafa. Then what power does the Besdin have? The Besdin got involved here, and now you're going to tell me that they get older and then just redo it? The whole thing is a waste. Can't be like that. So what do we see? Rav Nachman holds Makayach Besdin Yafa. When Besdin does something, it should be final. And here we're saying Rav Nachman says halach like the Chamim that the sales goes off if it's 1/6 off. Gemara says like kasha. That's not a real question what you're asking, because had the toe, had the light toe. They were talking about we made a mistake. The Bezdin makes a mistake, said the sales off. Over here they didn't make a mistake. They thought this was right, and it could have been right if the people would have agreed to it. It's just when they got older, they decided that's not what they wanted. They didn't want the orchard. They wanted the grain field. They didn't want the house. They wanted the livestock. Whatever. The way they divide things up. But there was no mistake there in value. Either like, oh, if it wasn't a mistake, so what are you telling me that they can protest? What are they protesting about if there's no mistake? My answer is beruches. They're protesting about which side of the field they wanted more, because it could be that one of them, his mother, see, they inherit from the father, but they maybe have different mothers. His mother's field, his mother's family's field, was on the east of this. So if he would get the east side of this property, then he'd be able to plow them both together. Now he has to get the west side. He has to skip it over this other field to be able to do the whole plow. It's not worth it for him. Okay. There was no mistake there, but it just was not for his best interest. Okay. It's inconvenient. Just Rav Dimi Amar Maisa. Rav Dimi came. Rav Dimi was a traveler. Now, he brings a story that happened in Israel earlier. It says, Maisa Vasa Rebbe Kedivr Chachamer. Rebbe said, Paskin like the sages, which means that he retracted from a ruling that the Besdin made because the sale was not perfect. It was a 6th thought. So, Amalafan of Parta Benoishel Rabbi Elazar ben Parta Ben Benoishel Parta Agadol. Parta, who is the son of Rabbi Elazar ben Parta, which basically means he's the grandson of Parta. You get it? His grandfather's name is Parta. So they call the grandfather Parta Agadol. The Rebbeisha were on Kuf Amad Aleph. In the wide lines, the line starts Parta. We started today from Pshita on Tzaddik Testament base.
Yeah, that I know. Thank you.
Okay. So this Parta tells to Rebbe, Imkain Makayach Bezdin Yafa. If you're going to retract from the sale because it's a little bit off, so what power does the Bezdin have? The Bezdin should have that's it. It's a done deal. Right? What happens today if the court makes a mistake in something? It must depend on how big the mistake is.
Well, it can appeal.
Right. So that would probably go under that rule would probably go under. Well, it's under a 6, so it's fine. But if it's more than a 6, then it's already too much.
Six sounds like a lot.
what happens if it was off, or if there's a complaint about it? It's a big deal. Okay. So after Parta told us to Rebbe, the Hichser Rebbe Esamaisa, Rebbe put it back into its original status. Follow? Bezdin Paskin. Rebbe says the sale's off, and then he puts it back. The sale's on. Okay. He accepted it. However, Rab Dimi Masni Hachi. That was the story according to Rab Dimi. Rab Safra Masnachi. Rab Safra has a story a little different. Meister Bikish Rebbe last is Kedivir Chacham Mamla Pana Part Beneshol Rab Lozben Part Ben Beneshol Part Gadol. Over here, the story goes according to Rab Safra. Rebbe wanted to, not that he did.
But why didn't they change his mind?
Oh, he accepted what Partha said. That's logical. You're right. The court should have the strength. So, and then Partha tells him, and came Makkarech Bezdin Yafa, and Loi Asa Rebbe Asamaisa. And Rebbe did not follow through. So the difference between the way Rab Dimi had it and the way Rab Safra had it is, according to Rab Dimi, Rebbe had already decided that the sale's off, and then he decides that the sale's back on. And according to Rab Safra, he was about to decide that the sale's off, but Partha told him not to, so he didn't. And the sale stayed on. Okay. Now the Gemara says, I'm sorry?
There's an idea in government of deference to government decision. Like the court will have, like, that if it's less than a certain amount, I think that would fall under this idea of you defer to the previous decision. I'll talk about.
What is it called? What is it called when it would be a mistake?
I think it's called Chevron deference. It's a specific case where the court says, well, we're not going to question how the government decided things, unless it's like very off kind of thing.
Something called Chevron deference.
Sovereign deference.
It's like
Is it
it's an
sovereign or
administrative.
Chevron?
Oh, it's a administrative law. It's a case called Chevron.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean that the house always wins. Means you leave it like that. They don't go back and start challenging that. Okay, so there is a concept that we'll have in Baba Basra about Zilusa the Bedina. That we don't like it's not good for the best and to keep going back and forth. It doesn't look right. Like they can't make up their minds. Like what's going on? They take it back and then back. That's not appropriate for a court. We've had it. So here, what is the machlekes between Rab Dimi and Rab Safra and how the story was? Well, it's interesting. Maybe the machlekes is like this. What happened was, what was that? Who had 3.5 hours? I have to prepare.
Just because you woke up and I won't come in.
Yeah, look what I got. All the trophies. I'm flying. Okay. So, the question is, sometimes if the court makes a mistake, they say, so what? It's that we leave it as is, and sometimes they have to redo it. So the rule is Tabid Var Mishnah. If the mistake was in something that was so obvious, the Var Mishnah, the Mamish Mishnah, then you have to go back. That they can't make a mistake in something so obvious. Well, we would say Mar Savrei Nachazer, and one holds that no, that you don't go back, and that's why Reb Safra didn't want to say, even though Partha tells Rebbe, but we have a statement from Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that says Makayach Bezdin Yafa, and so therefore you should not retract from what the Bezdin did. But Rav Safra doesn't want to say that was the case, that he already took it back and then he goes back, because he holds tabid var mishnah in a chayza. Once the Bezdin does it, they don't have to go back. They don't redo it. The Gemara says, "Lie." That's not true. That's not the explanation. Everyone really holds the kuli al matabid of our mishnah chayza. Everyone holds that if the Bezdin makes such an obvious mistake, that they have to retract. It's interesting. The Gemara just says, one said that this was the story and one said that this was the story. There's no logic behind it. It was just what actually happened. Does this happen or that happened? That's it. It's not that it must mean that they held and he held. No. It's just two ways of understanding what happened. Okay. Amar Rab Yosef. Yosef says, Amalta desvina achrayas hayasmi. The widow's selling off property for her ksuba. We're on 100 towards the bottom. What happens if it turns out that the property that she sold, now there's a new purchaser, someone living in that property now, and then someone shows up and says that property was actually stolen from me by those orphans or by the father. It never belonged to them. She had no right to sell it. So they come and they take that property away from the purchaser. So the purchaser now goes back to who? To the widow. She was only selling it on behalf of the orphan. They go back to the orphans and they get their reimbursed for that sale that didn't work out. Bezdin does up. Say the Bezdin sells the property, and the same thing happens. Turns out that the property didn't really belong to the people that were selling it. So, the guarantee, the warranty, goes back to the orphans, and they have to reimburse the person that the purchaser. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Shita, the Gemara says this is obvious. They were just selling it on behalf of the orphans. The Gemara says, the truth is, you're right. Regarding the widow, that was obvious. But what we really needed to tell us is that when the court makes a sale, that it goes back to the orphans. Because Mao the Tame, I could have said, called the Zaben Beidina, Adaita Lamefakla, Kala who the Zaben, Kamash Malan. I could have thought like this. Could have said, because it's a sale in court, there is no warranty on the sale. It's such a good sale that we don't even need to give you a warranty. They don't do it like this. Today they do it exactly the opposite. You buy something that doesn't need a warranty, that's when they give you the warranty. The things that need the warranty, they charge you for that warranty. But over here, we're saying I could have thought that because it's such a good sale, you don't even need a warranty. And so therefore, if someone actually shows up and says that after the whole sale, says that this property was mine, so there is no warranty. Could have thought that because it's being sold in court. Why would there be such a strong sale? Because the court usually sells when they announce it, and there's all this announcement, this public auction and all of that. If someone would have owned it, they would have showed up. No one showed up, so we don't need to make a warranty. Obviously, there's no problems with this. Oh. Rashi doesn't learn like that, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's definitely an option.
If you said someone did you when it's selling for his sustenance, for
One second, that's going to come up soon. That's going to come up soon. 1 second.
I didn't realize that.
Which one? Oh, encyclopedia.
Life is the basis. All activities are based. Civil.
Oh, really?
Besides this, the basis. The concept, after based in the ability of the basin to create it. What did you say in English? Something is the basis.
Hefker best and Hefker is
No,
the
I
basis.
understand what you said. Something is the basis, you use the term. Yeah, but that concept, after based in factor. What's it mean? That direct translation. You used the word.
No.
Can you not rumble, please? I mean, I'm like. I'm not turning radio.
Shimon ben Gamliel Aimer Chulu. Shimon ben Gamliel says. Remember, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, he says that if the sale, even though it was overpriced or underpriced by a sixth, the sale is still valid because it was done in court. If you don't say this, then Makar best in Yafa. But it says, well, Bad Kama. It's got to be a limit to how off it could be for this to be a valid sale. How off could it? What margin of error can the Besdin have that the sale's valid and after that it's not valid? So Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheshas ad palga, up to a half. Well, Tanya Nami Hach, we even have a brisa that says this. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Besdin shemachu shavim masayim b'mana, I shavim mana b'masayim bechan kain. It cost 200, they sold it for 100. It cost 100, they sold it for 200. The sale's valid. You know why it didn't use a different example? Because a different example wouldn't have been valid. If it would have been 100 for 300, or 300 for 100, then it wouldn't have been valid. It was only because it was 100 for 200, 200. It was up to half, and that's that's going to be valid. That's the proof that they bring from the brisa. Amar Meimar Mishmei Rav Yosef Bezin Shemachar B'lei Achraza. If Bezdin sold without the announcements that they're supposed to make, Nasu Kamishato B'dvar Mishnah V'chayzin. It becomes like they made a mistake in what something that's so obvious that's in a Mishnah, and the sale's off. The Gemara asks, Nasu, it becomes like Vadai Tahu. It is like, not becomes like, it is. The Tanan, we have a Mishnah. Shuma Yisaimim. The evaluation that's done for the property of the estate of someone that passed away, for the orphans, Shleishim Yaim. That has to be, they announce it for 30 days that they're going to make the auction. Shuma Hektish, when there's a property that belongs to Hektish that they're going to sell. How did it belong to Hektish? Someone consecrated his property. The Bezdin doesn't need that property. They need the funds to be able to upkeep the temple. So they're going to sell it. But how are they going to sell it? They're going to announce it, Shishim Yom, for 60 days. We'll get the best price, the highest price. Machrizin b'bayker b'erev, they have to announce in the morning and the evening. Yeah, some say it was Monday and Thursday, some say it's every day. Okay. Whatever the case is, we have a Dvar Mishnah that says that when the sale needs to be done with announcements. When it says Imahi, if you would have used that Mishnah, I would have said Hanimili Shliach. That's a messenger that's selling it. Abel Bezdin. But if the Bezdin sells it, I would say that the sale is possibly still good. Mashmalana comes to teach me that it's not good. In other words, I could have thought that Mishnah Shum Hayasaimim Shleishim Yaim is not taking place in Bezdin. And also the Hekdesh that's being sold is not taking place in Bezdin. Okay. Esvei Rav Ashi La Meimar.
You think that during the times, just like this,
probably.
How can you think?
Then it would be a problem because it would be hard to, yeah. It's good, like these impossible situations, like what do you do with the money and all of that. Ravashi asks Ameimar, Ameimar said in the name of Rabbi Yosef that if they didn't make the announcements before they sold, so then the sale is not valid. The problem is Shuma Dayanim Shepichsu Shtus Eishir Shtus Mechram Batal. Our Mishnah. If they went over a sixth or under a sixth, the sale's off. This is Shuma Dayanim. Hashava b'shava. Why is the sale off? Because they went over a six or under a six. 1 second. If it would have been on target, exactly the right price, then it would have been a good sale, obviously. My lavs layachos. But it must be that we're talking about where they didn't do the announcement. You just told me that if they don't announce the public auction, the sale's off. Now you're telling me that the sale's on if the price was right. We're seeing now that when we said the sale's off, it doesn't have to do with the price being on. It has to do with because they didn't do the announcement. Gemara says like the dachas. We're talking about where they did announce, and the whole reason why the sale's off is because the price was wrong. 1 second. You can't say that we're talking about that there was an announcement because in the Seifa it says that there was an announcement. The Ktani Seifa it says that if they had the letter that invites everyone to investigate the property, so it must be that the first one was when they didn't announce, but the sale would have been on if the price would have been right. The kasha and a meimer. We must say that we're talking about where there was no announcement here. And we're going to need to say, depends for what things that we're selling. Certain things that are sold, we don't make the announcement for. Why? These are the following are things that we don't announce that there's going to be a sale regarding them. Slaves, metaltalin, and documents. Metaltalin is personality and documents. Avadim taimamai, why don't we announce that we're going to sell a slave? You may hear that he's being sold, he may try to run away. So they don't announce that. Metaltalin v'shtaris, when we announce that they're selling personality and documents, they may get stolen. They're being transported and this and that, they may steal them. Iba Yisema, another pshat could be why the sales off. Sorry? Oh, did I skip that? No, that's coming up. 1 second. 1 second. Yeah, that's coming up. Okay. Iba Yisema, another pshat. It's at a time when we don't announce. What would be a time that it? I mean, Nardai says, Lakarga, when we're selling things for the head tax, we don't have time to make a public auction. We have to sell it right away. The mezaine, or if it's for food, you don't have time, 30 days. We'll get you the best price, and maybe they can't fast for 30 days. The lakvura, or if it's a burial, you don't have time for the burial. You can't wait for the best price. You have to sell it in whatever it is. They're under pressure. So over there they sell without an announcement. So what we're saying is that why is it that the sale isn't off just because there was no announcement? The sale is only off because the price was wrong. Because these were special cases where they don't do the announcement.
So you don't make an announcement.
Right.
Yeah. How do you feel?
Yeah.
I mean, you can. Oh, it's what got. Here's the.
What do you do?
Just go with it.
Really? Wow. Too late. Okay. It could be the location. In that location, they don't. This is what Dr. Stein was saying. They don't make announcements that they're auctioning something in Nardai. Originally, they thought that maybe because Nardai, they're so experts in what everything costs, they don't have to make announcements to find out what the market price is. Amar Alei Rab Yosef Bar Minumi. Rab Yosef Bar Minumi says, I heard from Rab Nachman. What's the pshat? The people that would purchase it would be shamed by the other people. They would say, "Oh, you went and you purchased the fields from people that were under distress, and that wasn't right what you did." And they would feel uncomfortable about living in that property, so that then they wouldn't get the best price for it, because no one would want to buy it. So they would sell it without announcement. Okay.
By the way, insurance is the 59 Cadillac, even though it's relatively the same, this past July actually sold $415,000 in perfect one. Knows 58 better than close. Thank you. 59 is better than 58.
You. I like.
Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Metatlim shall Yisayim Mishaman Yisayim Meichon Yisayim Alter. Personality of the orphans, you have to sell it immediately because you don't know how long these things last, and you just have to sell it up. Well, Rav Chisda Amar Ravimi Meichon Yisayim L'Shvakim. You sell it in the marketplace, not Lalta. You have to wait for the market to open. It'll be like a fair or something. And there's no argument between them because how the Mikra Shuka, the Merchat Shuka, depends when the fair was going to be. If it was going to be soon, then they would wait for it. If it was going to be in a while, so then they would sell it immediately. Rav Kana Havid Biyadei Shichud Rav Mishashir Bachikloi Yasma. Rav Kana was holding on to the beer of Rav Mishashir Bar Chikloi that was an orphan. Well, Shayad Rigla, he waited until the I think, what does Rigla mean? The season or the holiday? Amar Afagav de Nafal Bei Itzitza, Maisi Zuzi Charifa. Even though it's going to go a little sour, well, because I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting, but nevertheless, it will still bring in a better price. Better price if he waits. Festival, okay. Regular, it's a holiday. Okay. Is that the one they have in Germany?
Yeah.
Ravina Biyade Chamra, the Ravina Zuta Yasma, Barachde. Ravina had wine from an orphan by the name of Ravina, Ravina the younger, who happened to be his nephew. Well, he had wine, he was holding this wine, he was supposed to sell it. Well, he also had his own wine. He had two wines now. Ravina had his wine and he was a trustee for some other wine for Ravina. And he was going to bring it to Sichra to sell it. Also, comes to Ravashi. Can I bring this other wine together with mine to sell it over there? It's going to sell better. Amalei zil go layadif mididach. It's no better than yours. If you're bringing yours, that's probably the best thing to do. So you'll bring this also. Okay, next Mishnah goes like this. Amanis. A girl that walks out of a marriage. How did she walk out of a marriage? Because the whole marriage was only made by Leon. It was only made by her brothers and mother. The father had passed away, and she's married. Well, let's see the next case. Hashniya. A woman that wasn't allowed to marry this man because they're related, not biblically that close that it's like a father, sister, like there, but it could be like a grandmother or at that level where it becomes just a rabbinic prohibition. It's called a shnia, violence. Or if the woman cannot have children, and not because she's barren, but because there's a defect. Yeah, not that she's barren, just because she never had children, something that's not visible. Here, there's actually a defect that with time becomes visible. And the secondary features are not there. Well, Elam Ksuba. Yeah, this is not a problem of prohibition to get married. This is just where the person feels fooled. And he said, "You didn't tell me this detail. You knew that you wouldn't be able to have children. You didn't tell them." Okay. So Einlem Ksuba, when he divorces them, she walks out of the marriage, or the shnia, there was a marriage that wasn't allowed, or he says, you tricked me into this. She doesn't get a ksuba. V'lei Paris. Now Rashi's first pshat, V'lei Paris, means that he doesn't have to redeem her, because there was an exchange, an agreement that the husband is allowed to eat the fruits of the usurper, could eat the fruits of her properties, and in exchange for that, he has to redeem her if she's taken captive. So, but because these marriages were not really marriages, he doesn't have to redeem her. I don't know how that would work with the Mamanis. She's not there anymore. I mean, it's not his wife. Okay. The Mamanis, the girl that walked out of the marriage, did me. She also doesn't get mezainis. Now, what mezainis over here would mean is if the husband went away, she borrows money against him to feed herself, and when he comes back, he's obligated to pay it because he has to give mezainis. In these cases, he doesn't have to pay the. It's her debt. And she also doesn't get back the worn out clothing that she brought into the marriage. We'll see in the Gemara. It's interesting. Im mitchila nasa l'shem islandess. Let's say originally when they got married, she says, "By the way, I'm an islandess. Means I'm not going to be able to have children." And he says, "Yeah, that's fine. I love you anyway. I'm going to get married." Yesh l'ksuba. Then he has to give her the ksuba because he agreed to it. Almana l'kayin gadol grusha v'chalutza l'kayin hedyet mamzer simsin l'Yisrael. Let's say it's a widow to a kayin gadol. Now, it was a prohibition.
Yeah.
Or it's a divorcee or a chalutza to a regular kayin, or a mamzeres or a nasin to a regular Israelite or a Yisrael, a daughter, a Jewish girl to a nasin and a mamzer, which is the nasin we said where the people weren't allowed to marry them because they fooled David or Yeshua about they were. All right. Yeah, so this is different. This is the Nasim, but really a tribe from the 7 tribes that lived, 7 nations that lived in Israel that we weren't supposed to accept them. They fooled the Yeshua and made the water carriers, right? So Yeshlam Ksuba. These marriages, they do have a Ksuba. Now, the explanation for this is like this. We believe that he convinced her to get married, even though these were prohibitions. She on her own would never have wanted this marriage. But he pushed her to get married. And so therefore we fine him with having to pay a ksuba. We blame this marriage on him. The other marriages we're going to blame on her. By the shniyas, where there's a marriage where it's rabbinically prohibited, we're going to blame that marriage on her. She doesn't lose out on that marriage. She doesn't become puzzled to a kayan. The children are not mamzerim. She doesn't lose out from that marriage. So we think that she was the one that convinced him to get into this marriage, and so therefore she loses the ksuba.
This is what she's.
Shnia, a relative, his grandmother, or something. So it must have been her idea, her bad idea. Okay, Rav Tani Ketani Yetzer Beget. We're going to have now Machlekes Rav and Shmuel regarding what's going on with the marriage of a katana. Is it a real marriage, or is it not a real marriage? I know there's a husband here and there's a wife here, but do we consider this a real marriage that would require a divorce or not? So Rav says, Katana yaitz beget. Katana gets divorced with a get, but ein ksuba. She doesn't get a ksuba. And Kolshkin memanes. And for sure, if she just walks out of the marriage. Rav's view of the marriage of a katana is just like a girl that was seduced. And it's not a real marriage. They just happen to be living together, but it's not a real marriage. Shmuel Tani memanes ein ksuba. Yeah.
That's even
Yeah.
worse. Parents.
Right. Well, you would need the father, the brother. If the father married her, that would be different, I think. I think what we're talking about over here is not when the father marries. I think we're talking about when the brother and the mother marry her up. That would make sense. Shmuel Tani Memana saying Laksuba, but yet we get Yesh Laksuba. Shmuel says no. That if you see, Me'anas means she walked out of the marriage. The get means he divorced her. So Shmuel says that if he's divorcing her, then he has to give her a ksuba. Everyone agrees that if she walks out of the marriage, she can't walk out of the marriage and say, I want a ksuba. It's her fault. Stay married. I never asked you to walk out. She's walking out. If he's divorcing her, he has to give her a ksuba.
That's for a minor.
Yeah, minor.
It'll make sense.
Yeah, but now we're talking about it's a minor. So we're not talking about full. If she wants, she could walk out of the marriage, or he could divorce her with a get. So, but when he divorces her with a get, it's required to give her a ksuba? It's machlekes Rav and Shmuel. What is the nature of this marriage? Is it a real marriage or not? As the Shmuel Tamei, she could always walk out and not get a ksuba. As the Shmuel Tamei, Shmuel follows his logic. Damer Shmuel menasin la ksuba. Yetz beget yesh la ksuba. Menes lei pasla menachin lei pasla menakuna. Yetz beget pasla menachin and pasla menakuna. Shmuel says that if she walks out of the marriage retroactively falls apart, and she's not like it never existed, and she's not prohibited to marry his brother because she was never married. It's a null. On the other hand, if there was a get, then she becomes prohibited to his brother and all, and she's considered a divorcee. She can't marry a Kohen. Yeah, that's the Mian. Apparently, she should be able to marry a Kohen.
It's like the virgin, it's more than a virgin, but now it's being received.
Right. Menes doesn't have to wait 3 months in between marriages. You see, normally you have to wait 3 months to see if maybe she's pregnant. Now, because she's a child, she's not pregnant anyway. That would be naturally she wouldn't be able to get pregnant. However, even someone that wouldn't be pregnant, we still require them to wait because of late plug. We don't like to make the distinctions. We like to just have the set rule that they have to wait 3 months no matter what. Well, over here, there wasn't a real marriage. She's my menace, so we don't have to put in the late plug. She can get married right away. However, Yetzer Beget but Yetzer Beget does have to wait 3 months. My Kamash Malan, what are you teaching me? Tanina, Kulu, everything that you taught me, I know from other places. Mamenes Beish, a girl that walks out of a marriage, annuls the marriage. She is permissible to marry, he's permissible to marry her relatives, she's permissible to marry his relatives. The marriage was annulled. And she's not forbidden to marry a Kohen. Nothing like get, but if he gives a get, then they are prohibited to the relatives, and she is prohibited to marry a Kohen. You have to wait 3 months. I'm sorry. It's that Mishnah didn't say that they have to wait 3 months after again. The Leitanan, that wasn't in that Mishnah, and that's why what Shmuel told us is more added to what the Mishnah said. Let's say that this is a machlekes tanaim. Rabbi Lezer, Aimer, it's probably Eliezer, Aimer, Ein Maisik Tana Klum, the actions of a child are nothing. Vein Balazakai Mitziasa, and the husband does not keep any objects that she finds. Believe my he doesn't keep her income either. Believe the person he also can't annul her vows. Veini Yarshi doesn't inherit her. Veini Metamala, he also can't become tummy to her if he's a kohen. Kol Shaldavar, Aina Kirstel Chaldavar, she's not his wife, according to Rabbi Eliezer. They're just together because the sages said that would be good, that she's just not on the street. So they have her together they allow them to live together. But the main point is to keep her off the street, but they're not really considered a husband and wife.
But if they have relations.
No, it seems not. Seems not. He seduced her. But is it tnus? I guess not. Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi Yeshua says no. The actions of a minor are something. The husband does keep the objects that she finds. He does keep her income. He can also annul her vows. Well, how would she have a vow? I guess she's 11. She has a vow. The Yersha, and he also inherits her. Metamala, and if he's a kohen, he goes to her funeral. The exception is that she can walk out without a get. But for all other practical purposes, they're husband and wife. Lema Rav Damak Rabbi Eliezer, Shmuel Damak Rabbi Yeshua. This would match up perfectly. Rav follows Rabbi Eliezer that says that the marriage is not a real marriage, and Shmuel follows Rabbi Yeshua that says the marriage is a real marriage. Gemara says no. Rabbi Eliezer Kuli Amalipli. Everyone agrees that what Rabbi Eliezer holds. The whole machlekes keep ligi alibid Rabbi Yeshua. Machlekes is according to Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua Shmuel says that the marriage is a good marriage. And Rav says, "Ad kan lekam Rabbi Yeshua semela mididei ledida, aval mididei ledida, aval mididei ledida." Like Rav says that I agree with Rabbi Yeshua, even though it sounds like I don't, but I really agree because Rabbi Yeshua didn't mention the one thing that I was talking about. That's the ksuba. Rav says that a woman that gets a get doesn't get a ksuba. Rabbi Yeshua says that a woman that's you're talking about the minor, the girl. Rabbi Yeshua says that this girl, the husband inherits her, she keeps her income, the husband keeps her income, and all. So it sounds like it's a real marriage. But the thing is that everything that's coming from her does go to him. But we still don't say, according to Rav's explanation of Rabbi Yeshua, that what's coming from him goes to her. That we don't say. In other words, she doesn't get a ksuba, but he still gets from her. That's how Rav views the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. Okay, we have time for the next piece. Or should we stop? Let's stop. Have to go. Okay. Okay, we'll leave it over here. Okay. So what we'll do is like this. Let's say if we learned